On the chessboard of global capitalism, no piece seemed as unshakable as the king in red and white. For nearly a century, Coca-Cola did not just sell a carbonated beverage, their own best-selling product. It bottled the American dream itself, transforming a sweet syrup into a global cultural religion. But in the spring of April 18, 1985, in a packed auditorium in New York, the company's leadership decided to make the most audacious and catastrophic move in corporate history. They decided to assassinate. What followed was not just a marketing blunder. It was a public execution of identity that almost brought the world's largest beverage empire to a total collapse. To understand how the king put himself in check, we need to move the pieces back on the board to the 1970s. Pepsi, the eternal arch nemesis and the market's black rook, had initiated a brutal psychological warfare known as the Pepsi Challenge. In blind taste tests, millions of consumers pointed out the obvious. Pepsi was sweeter, and the human palate is biologically programmed to prefer sugar. Coca-Cola, paranoid and watching its market share silently shrink from 60% to less than 24%, began to panic behind the scenes. The pride of leadership gave way to fear, and the generals from Atlanta decided that tradition had to be sacrificed in the name of survival. In the company's ultra-secret laboratories, under the code name Project Kansas, scientists developed a smoother, sweeter, and ironically, more Pepsi-like formula. The blind tests were an absolute success. The new formula beat both Pepsi and classic Coke competition. Confident that he had found the ultimate masterstroke, CEO Roberto Goizueta gave the order. They would discontinue the original formula and launch new Coke. They believed they were delivering a checkmate to but in the chess game of business, they forgot a fundamental rule. You never sacrifice your queen expecting the pawns not to rebel. The announcement of new Coke acted as a silent earthquake that cracked the foundation of Western culture. In the first 24 hours, the headquarters in Atlanta was flooded with over 400,000 calls from furious consumers. Childhood, their memories, and the stability that red can represented in a constantly changing world. These were not just dissatisfied customers. They were citizens in mourning. Corporate arrogance had committed the cardinal sin of mass psychology. They treated a cultural icon as if it were just a liquid commodity. The public did not want a better taste. They wanted their. The backstage of the decision revealed a frightening strategic myopia. Coca-Cola's market intelligence team had spent millions of dollars on quantitative research, but failed miserably in qualitative analysis. Reactance. When people feel that their freedom or tradition is being stolen, they react aggressively to reclaim it. The company's behavioral psychologists forgot to ask the crucial question in the taste tests. If this new formula is launched, how will you feel if the old one ceases to exist forever? The loss of choice generated a psychological phenomenon known as, while Coca-Cola's leadership locked themselves in armored meeting rooms, watching the value of their shares sway, Pepsi watched the show from the front row. Pepsi's CEO declared an official company holiday, distributing Pepsi to all employees and publishing full-page newspaper ads with the headline, "Coca-Cola blinked, owned subjects, and the opportunistic genius of his greatest rival." Pepsi had won the war without firing a single shot. The king of Atlanta was backed into the corner of the board, surrounded by the hatred of his. The crisis escalated from a public relations problem to a mass civil protest. Groups of citizens, led by figures like investor Gay Mullins, founded the Old Cola Drinkers of America Association, organizing nationwide boycotts and filing lawsuits against the company to force the return of the old formula. Contraband, being sold for up to 10 times their original value. The brand that once united the country was now creating a social fault line. Bottles of the original Coca-Cola became black market. Control of the narrative had been completely ripped from the hands of the Atlanta executives. Inside Coca-Cola's headquarters, the atmosphere was that of a wartime bunker. Protest letters piled up by the thousands daily, some of them addressed to the CEO with desperate pleas, as if begging for the life of a family member. new advertising campaign, or generic corporate apologies. The best-kept secret of capitalism, the secret formula known as Merchandise 7X, had been locked in a vault, but its moral value had evaporated. The executives realized that the consumer's emotional betrayal could not be mitigated with The pressure reached its peak when Coca-Cola's own bottlers, the independent commercial partners who distributed the beverage around the world, threatened a mass rebellion. They were suffering local boycotts, their fleets were booed on the streets, and sales were plummeting vertically. Stubbornness that would lead to bankruptcy, or the public humiliation of admitting the worst mistake in business history. The distribution system, the true nervous system of the empire, was on the verge of collapse. The board indicated an inevitable checkmate. Only two options remained for the leadership. Just 79 days after the launch that was supposed to change the world, Coca-Cola capitulated. On July 11, 1985, the iconic executive Don Keough took the stage to utter the words that would enter the annals of marketing. "We heard you," or moon landings. The company announced the triumphant return of the original formula under the name Coca-Cola Classic. The announcement was so monumental that it interrupted regular programming on major American television networks, an honor previously reserved for presidential assassinations. The surrender, in fact, was the most brilliant and involuntary chess move in history. What followed defied all laws of economic logic. When Coca-Cola Classic returned to the shelves, the public bought it with an almost fanatical fury. Calculated psychological move. Sales skyrocketed to levels never seen before, surpassing both New Coke and Pepsi within a few weeks. Consumers were not just buying a soda. They were celebrating a victory over the arrogance of large corporations. Some conspiracy theorists argue to this day that the entire fiasco was a coldly. However, Don Keough himself later admitted, "We weren't that smart. The truth is, we just didn't understand the depth of the public's love for this product." In the end, the great lesson of New Coke is not about taste, but about emotional ownership. The world's most valuable brands do not belong to the shareholders who hold their stocks, nor to the executives who sign the memos in luxurious offices. Mathematical match. Forgetting that, in the theater of consumption, the heart always wins over pure calculation. They belong irrevocably to the collective mind of the consumers who adopted them as part of their lives. Coca-Cola almost destroyed itself because it tried to change the rules of the game without the consent of the base. They played the pieces as if they were in a... Se você quer entender os segredos ocultos por trás das maiores jogadas de xadrez do mundo dos negócios e da psicologia corporativa, o seu próximo movimento é simples. Deixe sua opinião nos comentários abaixo. Você acha que a New Coke foi um erro real ou a maior estratégia de marketing disfarçada da história? Inscreva-se no canal, ative as notificações e não perca os próximos bastidores do poder que moldam o nosso mundo.